Hi, this is Todd DeVoe, the host of EM Weekly, and I just wanted to thank everyone out there who has taken time to listen to our brand new podcast. It's been an exciting process that we've gone through here at EM Weekly to bring you some guests and some topics that we find interesting, and hopefully you do too. I really appreciate you taking your time out and giving us a listen. Please share this podcast and the guests with all your friends in your network. And again, I really do appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to EM Weekly, and you could go to other places for other sources, and you're spending time with us. Again, thank you so much. Hi, welcome to EM Weekly, and this is your host, Todd DeVoe, and I have a very special guest with us today, all the way from Washington State, and he's a big hitter here in the emergency management world. So, Eric, sir, can you please tell us a little about yourself, and how did you get into emergency management, and what's your role now?
Well, hi, Todd. This is Eric Holdeman. And make this short as possible, I had a military career, and as I was matriculating out, I actually started early, and I looked at 3 different career fields: emergency management, construction management, and nonprofit fundraising, and it ended up the one that worked out was emergency management. And when I was in the military, I had one assignment in the Midwest where I did military support, civil authorities planning, as we called it back then, and spent 5 years at Washington State Emergency Management doing training, planning, exercises, public education, and operations, and then 11 years as the Director of Emergency Management for King County, Washington State, which is the metro Seattle area, about 2 million population. And then a couple of years private consulting, 4 years at the Port of Tacoma as Director of Security, and now 4 years as the Director of Center for Regional Disaster Resilience, which is part of the Pacific Northwest Economic Region at the statutory nonprofit.
That's awesome. And a little bit here, we're going to talk about some regional coalitions type stuff, but I kind of wanted to just really kind of chew your brain here for a little bit and kind of talk about the future of emergency management. And so, I mean, there's so much that's going on right now. In your piece in Emergency Management Under Construction, you stated that we still have a ways to go. And what did you mean by we still have a ways to go?
Well, I see emergency management as being still in our tweens, and that we're not a mature profession yet. Yeah, emergency management came out of civil defense, and back then it was, preparing for a nuclear holocaust type of thing, and civil defense shelters, civil defense supplies, and that emphasis went all the way up into the 1990s, or so, until the Berlin Wall fell, and then it has, over time, become much more focused on natural hazards. But 9/11 changed that. There's been a lot of hard turns. The pendulum swung back and forth a number of times, but it's only now, after 2001 terrorism attacks, that we have degrees of higher education, colleges, universities, and a lot of them are online, that there's actually some curriculum being taught in management, homeland security, but standardization of that is pretty kind of all over the place. If you graduate from a degree program, you don't know what the emphasis was in that program.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on for sure. I teach at a community college, and we have a pretty big academic rigor to get the programs up and running, so I understand the differences between all the different programs. I do agree with you that we do have some standardization. So, you were saying, like, you've had some hard turns, and I know, like, Hurricane Andrew is one of them, and then even before that, like, do you think emergency management started coming into its own with the formation of FEMA under President Carter, or before that?
Well, no, I would say that was it. 3-star General Julius Beckton was the first FEMA director, and the idea there was pulling together these disaster functions under one coordinating agency. It isn't like it all exists there. Most citizens don't realize how small FEMA actually is in staffing. You'll hear people say, "Where's FEMA?" Well, there's not that many. I don't know what the current count is, but back early in the days is a couple thousand people
Right.
total. So they're not the boots on the ground delivering direct services from that standpoint. So really, it dates from there, but I'd say the modern emergency management, I would date to about 1993 or so when James Lee Witt came on board as the first professional emergency manager, having been county and state and the state of Arkansas emergency manager, come into position and move FEMA out of the majority focus, planning for nuclear attack and continuity government for the national command authorities and that type of thing, to having this natural hazard focus, and in fact, a mitigation focus with a program back that was called Project Impact back then. And what I said at the time, most emergency managers didn't spell the word mitigation, and a lot of times people heard the word and they thought you said litigation.
Right.
So that, a lot has changed over time, and we've made some progress. But the 9/11 tax and the establishment of the Department of Homeland Security, but FEMA under that really was a huge setback in an all-hazards approach, having more of a comprehensive look at emergency management, not having one particular hazard be the tail that wags the dog.
I was actually going to ask you that. My personal opinion is, this is, again, my personal opinion, is that I think FEMA should be out from underneath the Homeland Security umbrella. What do you think about that? And do you think we could ever get back from underneath that umbrella?
Well, it's not going to happen until there's another Katrina-like failure that would cause people to say, okay, what needs to happen is have a reorganization with FEMA out of it. So for that discussion among professional emergency managers is pretty well dead. I mean, it happened after Katrina, the talk of moving it out, but it did not happen then, and it's not going to happen until there would be some comprehensive failure of the agency as being part of the Department of Homeland Security. And the book answer is always that the closer you are to the political leader, the better off you are, whether you're a city, county, state, or the national program. And reporting directly to the governor is a lot better than being buried in another agency. But having said that, there are many successful emergency management programs that enjoy executive level support without being a direct report to the executive. And really what determines that is the interest level of the executive in the function of emergency management.
That was a conversation that I was having with the emergency manager down here by me. We're having lunch, and she did this paper. She said back when she was going through school back in the 90s, I guess, maybe before that. She's one of these emergency managers that's been around for a long time. And her opinion was that the emergency manager should always be working in the city level we're talking here, at least the city manager. And what I've noticed is, like, in California, I can't speak for the other states, is that emergency managers are, like, all over the place. You got people working for the police department, you got guys in the fire department, you got people in public works, you have some in communications. There's really no standardization of where the EM sits in the city. Is that something that you think that we should work as a standard nationally, the position of the EM, or is that just going to be left up to the whims of the local government?
It's always going to be left up to the local government. It just depends on the will and what the history is of each different geopolitical entity that exists out there, and how much money you have. The majority of emergency management positions probably in the nation still remain part-time.
Mm-hmm.
That if someone's a fire chief and he's the emergency manager, or a police chief and he's the emergency manager, or the director, or the public works director has that responsibility. And because of that, there's a natural tendency to have it farmed out separately because you don't have a dedicated person. I think one of the things that will help in this transition, perhaps, is the establishment of chief resilience officers at various levels of government. I know the state of Oregon has a state resilience officer as part of the Oregon governor's policy. It's not cabinet level position, but it works as a direct report within the policy section, somebody dedicated to that versus here in Washington State, somebody has that role, but they've got 10 other duties in addition to it. And I think prioritizing it like that helps provide emphasis, because what happens is emergency management, when it's an additional duty, wherever it is never going to be the top priority, because everyday duties, the crisis of the moment will overcome the need to do longer range planning and preparedness to get you ready and others in your community for the disaster. So that's the challenge. When I tell people and organizations, the best thing you do is, if you only have enough money for a half-time position, hire a half-time person, and that person will be dedicated to it. They'll make an additional duty for someone else. And always trying to balance it, and emergency management typically gets the short end.
Yes, that's for sure. You're talking about the resilience officer. I know that LA City, I don't know if that's their title, but pretty much that's what they're doing. And I know that Eric Holdeman, the mayor, went really big into looking for somebody for that role. And he was working with Dr. Lucy Jones from Caltech, specifically about the earthquakes. And obviously in California, it's earthquakes. I know it is up by you as well. But that's kind of what they're focusing on. So that's why they brought her out there. And I thought that was a really good step forward for LA. I wish that we could see that in the rest of the county and also Orange County and whatnot. But,
right.
Yeah. So
I wouldn't disagree.
That's awesome. So where do you see EM in 10 years?
Well, there's been radical transformation. What drives change in emergency management are big events. So that, if you can predict what the next big event is, then you can kind of determine, if there's going to be a hard right, hard left turn in the future, one way or the other. But it's the event that drives these significant things, whether, like you mentioned Hurricane Andrew and the failure there, Hurricane Katrina, or Superstorm Sandy, those types of things, drive significant change. Without that happening, certainly what I'm seeing is more catastrophic planning. We have some big events that we haven't done a lot of planning for. I would have poo-pooed years ago, and I'm talking, let's go back 20 years, pandemic flu was not being talked about. We did not have a significant terrorism threat. We did not have any approach to an asteroid hitting Earth. That was kind of, we'll throw up our hands and what we're going to do about that. Did not have, of course, anything on cybersecurity then. So as and solar flares and the potential for total disruption of our electrical grid and all our digital equipment from that, corneal mass injection. So I like to say that, the idea is we're trying to build resilience, and that's even in my title, but to a degree I feel like we're becoming more fragile because of the advances of technology. And I'm all for technology and integrating it into emergency management, but in order to save a buck, which the internet has allowed business and government to be able to do, we've wrung a lot of redundancy out of our communities and states by eliminating. People said, well, we're eliminating duplication, but really they've eliminated the redundancy. So sole source providers, type of thing, the supply chain that's just in time, even to a degree, the whole server cloud-based thing, there is some redundancy to that, but then, again, you're going to have telecommunications in place to make that happen. So the interdependencies in a modern society, we don't stand alone. We're very dependent on others, all performing their mission, and, the fuel, the gasoline, the electricity, everything's coming just in time to meet the thing. So any hitch in that supply chain, no matter whether it's the petroleum fuel or toilet paper, I guess, we're thrown off kilter very quickly. People don't realize how fragile that thread is that keeps us going.
Well, they say that the grocery markets only have like 2 or 3 days worth of food in them. So if you have a supply chain issue, where people are going to be without food quickly, right?
No, that's absolutely right. Story there is Safeway, which has about 40% of the market here in Metro Seattle, area. After 9/11, they pushed all their bread and water forward because they've seen people after an event like that go buy extra. And all that was gone within 24 hours, and nothing had happened here, and it was a 7-day supply that was gone. And, we talked about 3 days. Certainly, Washington State, Oregon, many communities have now gone to 2 weeks
right.
anywhere where there's a regional style threat. I mean, if you just have localized flooding, a big tornado that's a mile wide, I mean, it's certainly a huge, F5 tornado, but there's a lot of help still available. We're in these mega regional disasters that transform multiple states. We have the Cascadia region earthquake fault out here. There's not going to be any mutual aid, period. So you are going to be on your own for not hours, not days, but weeks. And out of the Cascadia Rising earthquake exercise held in June 2016, had about 20,000 people actually participate in that. The DoD element played significantly in that, and a lot of people think, well, the military is our last resort. They'll come in and save the day, but the fastest they can get boots on the ground in a significant amount is 8 days, and that's the 82nd Airborne. So people are going to be very hungry, thirsty, needing help after 1 day, let alone 8 days.
Yeah, I've actually witnessed humanitarian aid being given out overseas, and it's not ever a really fun and organized manner, so I can even imagine that over here with people just in a panic state. It's interesting, I'm going to kind of tap into one of your hobbies here, but I was looking through, I think it was Facebook or something like that, and a little picture came up, and it was an ad from back in the 1930s or 40s. It says that the Department of Agriculture says that everybody should have 2 chickens for every person who lives at your house. And I was like, wow. And so you have fresh eggs every day. And I was like, we don't, there's nobody, I mean, I shouldn't say nobody, but there's very few victory gardens, if you will, around, and I know that you're into gardening, that's kind of why, I mean, like, you just don't see it anymore, and I remember as a kid, my dad always had, I'm from New York originally, and we always had a small garden with corn and some pumpkins and stuff like that, and we would can it. Nobody does that around here. I don't even do something as guilty as everybody else. It's just
and to say one more thing about you're asking, what's the future? Well, global warming, and whether it's politically correct wherever you are to say global warming. Although interesting, last few years people are saying yes, absolutely it's getting warmer. It's now worth the attribution, but climate variability is another way to talk about. But that's going to cause much more significant natural hazard frequency. We've seen it in the past couple of years, these flooding events where they get a foot of water in rain, not a foot of flood water, but actually 12 inches of rain, 18 inches of rain, 24, 36 hours. That's unprecedented. And could be snow, and it could be heat waves also coming in our future.
We just went through that here in Southern California. Matter of fact, today, we had an inch of rain today. But we had rain 5 or 6 days straight. The city of Long Beach was flooded out in the 710. The freeways were flooded. I mean, roadways were flooded, and made us do some rescues and stuff like that. But but still, I mean, that was just for a few days of rain. I couldn't imagine, if it rains, you get more rain than this because the ground's already saturated and the hillsides are starting to slide. I mean, that would be. You're right. Things like that. People in California always think they can just drive down to the grocery market without it. They're surprised when there's less food in the market. So I think that's going to be one of those issues that we're going to have to really be planning for. What do you think? And this is something new, and I don't know if it's happening up there in the Seattle area, but it is here in SoCal. And I kind of agree with it. Do you think that the use of emergency managers to help with the homeless crisis, is that a proper use of our skills?
Oh boy, it has happened up here. In fact, the mayor of Seattle and the mayor of Portland both proclaimed an emergency for homelessness. I don't know the details there. I think probably did that in order to have emergency authorities for spending money and reallocating funds as the primary thing. But I have observed for our Seattle emergency management, people come to realize, well, if we have a crisis, something that needs to be handled, who's good at coordinating a multi-agency response? And that's what's drawing emergency management into these things. So it's a two-edged sword, though, because it's great you're being recognized for what you're doing there, but you have emergency management we're supposed to be looking at. So if we're continually operationalized doing these other things, the piece of the preparedness cycle where you're planning, training, and exercising for the disaster of natural disaster, technological, human cause, that's not happening. So it can be a significant detractor also, but that is something I've observed that here in Washington and in the Portland.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about the fact of taking the mission away as well. I know that we had the issue just here in Orange County. There's a significant homeless population on the Santa Ana River over by Anaheim Stadium, and the concerns are when the floods do, because they're in the flood control channel, and when the floods do come in, we're going to have people washed away. So that was kind of where I was thinking about the use of it. But yeah, it's true, you could be sidetracked for sure. Kind of switching gears a little bit, but not too much. So I was involved in creating a couple of regional coalitions here in Orange County, specifically with part of the UASN team, where we set up our urban area working group, and also I was part of creating what we call the CERT Mutual Aid Program, or CMAP, and the idea there was getting all the CERT teams from all the cities, because we have in Orange County there's 34 jurisdictions, I think. I could be wrong. It's 34, yeah. And getting all 34 cities to work together with their CERT programs and making sure everybody has the same training and whatnot. And so that's kind of stuff that I worked on. And I know that you talk about regional coalitions in your training and some of the consulting that you do. Do you think that ties into where we're going, or is this something you think is just kind of what should be done in emergency management?
Well, you've got to have someone with vision that goes beyond their jurisdictional boundaries that believes in regional, and that was the entire focus of my work when I was in King County. King County, Washington State has 39 cities, but they have another 126 governments. These are the water districts, sewer districts, school districts, cemetery districts, the hospital district, and all their elected officials. So we concentrated on who's going to pull this together and say, how do we work collectively? And that is, you don't snap your fingers. It really is, I call it missionary work, winning one person at a time, establishing the relationships for that, and it's a constant process because the people are always turning over. And absolutely, regional is the way to go because no one has enough resources in themselves to respond to a larger event. I mean, small things, everybody can get by, but if it's really the big one, you're going to be very dependent upon neighboring jurisdictions and citizen coalitions to help in the immediate area, and then until national help can arrive. And then they aren't going to come in and save the day. They're going to leave, and you're going to be left with the people you started with also. So
right.
It's important to learn how to work together.
What do you think of the nonprofit disaster groups? Like the Red Cross has been around for a long time, but teams like Team Rubicon, the veteran organization that goes out and helps out with recovery. Do you think of having, because I know they're involved with the COADs, the VOADs, but do you think of adding them into that regional concept before?
Yep.
Yeah.
The need is going to be so great that this is not a time to be arguing over turf and responsibility and feeling like somebody's horning in on your territory. Emergency managers need to take a very big approach to all of this. And if someone's got something they want to bring to the party, then if it's fruit salad or whatever it is, take it and throw it into the mix. I've got a quote I use is, be willing to give up some control in order to become more effective. So you can't control everything.
Right.
You can just point folks to include organizations in a single direction. You're all pulling on the rope in the same way and not conflicting with one another. So you'll do a lot better than having a single point, in the emergency manager dictator, which you're not. You're a coordination role. I like the term emergency coordination center over EOC, emergency operations center. It's an old military term. Not much operation stuff happens at EOC. That's why you see a lot of coordination, information sharing happens.
Right. So do you think organizations like Team Rubicon should be brought in directly into the EM role, or do you think, not EM role, but the EM fold, if you will, or should they be in the COAD area, VOAD?
I think, I'm not a big believer in national frameworks. I mean, it's saying, here's the template, this is what works for you. I think every metropolitan area has its own personality, and so if you've got a really strong COAD group, maybe that's the place for them to plug in. I think, again, it's not for folks to say this is the only way to do it. There's a lot of flexibility for what can work.
True. That is very true. All right. Well, I'm coming up to the hardest question of the day. Okay.
I've got 3 answers.
Okay. So, what is the number one book that you'd give to the new emergency men?
So I got 3 of them here. I'll hit it real quick. One is a fairly new book called American Dunkirk. It talks about the waterborne evacuation of Manhattan on 9/11. And I say that because everybody thinks, okay, I got this program, I've got to make it work, etc. That was the Coast Guard put out a call, and you had all these private vessel owners and operators and ferries. They all just responded, and they got through it. They did a great job. That's the tap. It's not just the organizations, but actually the individual neighborhoods to pull together. That's a great example of what can happen. And then there's Global Warming, Natural Hazards, Emergency Management. That book by James Bullock, George Hadow, and Tim Hadow. I actually have a chapter in there, but you got to get ahead of the power curve on global warming, because even for millennials just coming into the business, the disasters are going to get bigger and need to be able to understand that. And then another one that I like is A Futurist Guide to Emergency Management by Adam Crow. He's trying to get ahead of the power curve and where are we going on all of these issues. Politicians, response and recovery, to the technology side of things. And what I say is that on the technology side, that death and retirement are going to solve a lot of issues, because I think a lot of people don't want to do it because they don't know how to do it or afraid of taking chances. We could talk about technology in an entire podcast, probably. But technology is going to be every part of emergency management going into the future. So anything you can read on technology and becoming smarter on it is good for you and good for the profession.
That's awesome. We actually are going to be doing some technology casts. Well, sir, I've used a lot of your time this evening, and I do really appreciate it. Appreciate you being here. Is there anything else that you'd like to add, and maybe tell us a little bit about your consulting firm and how people can get hold of you? Or...
Well, I'll talk about my blog, and that is disaster-zone.com, and I blog on that. It's on the Emergency Management Magazine platform. The column I write for the magazine is called Disaster Zone. I actually host a government TV show up here in Washington State called, you guessed it, Disaster Zone. So, Disaster Zone is the number one blog of this type on emergency management in the United States. It had 283,000 hits last year, so always interested in having people share information with me that then I can share with others. So people see things, think this is really interesting, they'll send it to me, and I can't post documents, I can only post web links. So, send it to me, and I always try and give credit to whoever sent the piece of information along. And, I believe you can achieve immortality, so how about that, by sharing everything you know. So it doesn't die with you, pass it on to the next generation. It's a great thing about the culture of emergency management. We are a sharing profession, so keep that up and don't hoard what you know. Share it with it.
I love that. That's awesome. To achieve immortality by sharing. That is like a really good piece of wisdom right there, especially for our field and for the people that are coming up. Well, sir,
especially as you get older like me, and I'm going to be dead soon. So. All right.
Well, sir, again, thank you so much for being here. Everybody, thank you so much for listening to this podcast today. The books that we really want to hear are American Dunkirk, Global Warming, the Preacher's Guide to Emergency Management.
Yeah, Preacher's Guide, right.
Yeah, by Adam Crow, right? Awesome.
Yep,
and
you
then
got it.
I am going to leave you with that to achieve immortality, you can do so by sharing all your wisdom. So thank you, sir, for that, and you have a wonderful day.
Okay. Well, I'll give you one more thing.
Sure.
You know, since you said wisdom comes from experience, and experience comes from making mistakes. So I've made a lot of mistakes. All right. Have a great one.
You too, sir. All right. Bye-bye.
Emergencies happen. Whether they're related to medical emergencies, threats of physical violence, weather-related, or other. One of the most difficult things during an emergency is to find help and quickly and efficiently communicate with all parties, regardless of whether you're an administrator, law enforcement, or the end user. With Titan HST, we help distort time by creating high-tech, yet simple-to-use mobile-based applications that connect you with the people who can help you. At Titan HST, we believe in the power of people.
315 and 314, there is at least one person that's been shot. Somebody is still shooting inside.
453, I have a party shot here. I need rescue hot.
Are you ready for the unthinkable? Call our friends at High Speed TACMed. They provide custom emergency planning and training that saves lives. With years of experience in law enforcement, search and rescue, responding to and managing large-scale incidents, HSTM will evaluate and prepare written plans, training sessions, drills, and debriefs, leaving you with the necessary tools and experience that can save lives. Call HSTM today to discuss your specific needs, and the staff of High Speed TACMed will help ensure that you're ready and are in complete compliance. Call High Speed TACMed today, 805-419-0024. Again, that's 805-419-0024. The friendly staff at HSTM is standing by.
Bringing out bodies now. Get someone to the back as soon as you can. Rescue personnel. I got at least 3 to 7 hits.